Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Blood and Ink, a horror genre podcast. My name is JC Nolan, and although I am tired today, I have had a crazy weekend. We got a really cool episode for you. Our Fright Bite is going to involve what might be out there in the woods when you hear a baby crying, so super creepy. Then I also have our movie recap, but I've got a special guest joining us today. I'm super excited about that. We had a lot of fun recording that movie recap, so that's coming up soon. And before we get in too far, I think I'm going to make a little change to the structure of the podcast. Usually we end with our book club. I'm recognizing as I'm continuing and growing and learning by doing this podcast that I think if I'm reviewing movies with people and also doing these short stories, it could become a little long. And so I don't want to get rid of the book club because I really enjoy it. I think it's fun. So what I'm going to do is actually have the book club now become its own separate kind of mini episode. And those will come out sometime in the midweek. I'll definitely let you guys know as I figure out when that's going to happen. But yeah, so now instead of giving one episode a week, you're going to get one episode and then a little mini book club that's going to be stuffed somewhere in there. So we'll figure it out. Before we get into everything, let's go over some news. And I have some news of my own, really. I have written a short story, a little bit longer than a short story, definitely not novel sized, maybe a novelette, you can say. And that's called Sleepover from Hell. I'm super excited about it. It's out on Amazon right now. It's available in ebook format. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can actually read it for free. And if you want to buy it on Amazon, it's only 99 cents. So it would mean a lot to me if you guys went out and checked out the story. It follows a group of three young 11-year-old girls. Our main character is Melanie. And they have this idea that they want to summon a ghost at a sleepover, just like we all probably tried to when we were kids. Well, unfortunately, they end up summoning one hell of a grumpy demon, and they have to figure out how to send this demon back before they go to bed. So it's a really fun read. It's, I say it's horror comedy. It might lean more to comedy, but with some horror aspects to it. Like I said, it's just a fun, easy read, so go ahead and check that out. Another thing, you can now follow Blood and Ink on Instagram. You can find us at Blood Ink Podcast over on Instagram. And I am posting every time we have a new episode, whenever we're working on something new. I don't know why I keep saying we, because it's just me over here, and unless I have our special guest. But yeah, so go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram so that way you can keep up with everything going on with the show. Now for some news not involving me, The Last of Us Season 2 is out and rolling right now. It's out on HBO, but HBO has actually picked it up for a third season as well. So we know, hey, it's going to be renewed and that third season is coming out. So that's cool. Another big thing, a lot of cool movies coming out here soon. Jordan Peele is producing a new film called Him, and that trailer teaser was just released. It follows like a football player who is following his hero, which is a star quarterback, but it kind of follows him down this dark path. It looks super creepy, super weird, and just about everything Jordan Peele puts out is good. So that's going to be released in September 19th. We actually have a date for that. And then with new trailers, there's also a new trailer for 28 Years Later. Obviously that follows the 28 Days Later. But we don't have a lot more info on that. But just some things to look forward to. So that's cool. And of course, per usual, and without further ado, let us get into our Fright Bite. Today's Fright Bite is titled, I'm a Cop in Charlotte. We got a call about a baby crying in the woods. What we found wasn't human. Written by Reddit handle dry-competition5290. This happened a couple nights ago and I gotta write it down. Thinking it and saying it sound too crazy. I've been a cop long enough to know the worst calls always start the same way. Can you check out a noise complaint? Sounds like a baby crying. That came over dispatch just after 2 a.m. I'm a dad, so of course I'm going to make sure everything's okay. The area was some old woods near a defunct substation Duke Energy fenced off years ago. I knew the area. Dense, overgrown, not the kind of place you walk a stroller. It is where a lot of people camp if they don't have homes. So my brain made the call that some poor mama was out there with her baby. I was wrong. Caller didn't leave a name, just said the sound came from deep in the trees. Some drunk guy on his boat, probably out trying to catch some blue cats, heard spooky sounds in the woods. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I went alone. Protocol said I should wait for backup, but I didn't think much of it. Probably a fox. They make noises that'll raise the hairs on your neck. That, or someone dumped a cat in the brush. Or at worst, it's a damn bobcat. Reason I know this is I've had my run-ins with them quite a few times. They're mean as hell, but trick you by sounding like a baby. I parked on the shoulder and walked about 15 minutes into the woods. No trails, just soft earth and low branches clawing at my vest. The deeper I went, the colder it got. The kind of cold that doesn't belong in, redacted, in April. But it's there anyway because the weather can't make up its damn mind. Then I heard it. Soft, weak, definitely a baby. A newborn? That's what I thought. It sounded like my baby girl. Like the day she came home from the hospital. I froze. It was coming from ahead, somewhere beyond the next ridge. But it wasn't right. The cry looped. Same pitch, same rhythm, almost mechanical. Like it had been recorded. I unholstered my flashlight and moved slow. That's when I saw the eyes. Dozens of them, reflecting back in the dark. They stepped out together, silent, coordinated. A herd of white deer. Albino. Every single one. Bright as bone, antlers like coral, eyes red. There had to be 20 of them, just standing in the trees, blocking my path. They didn't run, didn't twitch, just stared. Their bodies looked off, like they were stitched together wrong. Too tall, joints too low. One of them had legs that bent the wrong way entirely. And in the center of them stood one without antlers. Smaller, female maybe. She opened her mouth in a way I've never seen a deer open its mouth. And from her mouth came the baby's cry. I know I couldn't see my reaction, but I know that all the color from my body left me at once. I felt hot. I should have run. I didn't. What came next was odd to say the least. I lost about an hour of consciousness. When I came to, I was still standing among the deer in the trees. The crying had never stopped. I had a sharp pain in my jaw and I could taste warm, thick blood running down the back of my throat. But there was also a smell. I started shaking and gagging, and I swear it looked as if a few of them were smiling. I raised my light and they turned, all of them at once. Walked back into the woods in perfect silence, vanishing between the trees. And then the crying stopped. Just like that. I stayed there another 30 seconds before my legs started working again. I also might have pissed myself. I checked my watch. 3:30 a.m. About an hour after I parked and radioed in dispatch. I had no recollection of the last hour. And the oddest thing? I was missing a molar. Back at the cruiser, I tried to call it in. Static. My radio didn't work until I was 5 miles down the road, and brother, that was a long walk. Next morning, I came back with animal control. They found nothing. No prints, no fur, no signs of anything except a tooth in the brush. It was a human milk tooth. A baby tooth. Animal control guy said that's probably where the sound came from. A baby in the woods with a homeless mom. He shrugged his shoulders and chucked it in the woods. I don't know why, but I went and retrieved it afterward and took it home. Call me crazy, whole department does now. They drug tested me after I gave my report. But here's the thing. Since I've brought that tooth home, I've caught glimpses of white deer in my yard at night. When I'm driving out on patrol, they run out in front of me. I've heard babies crying from the woods behind my house. I hear babies crying when I'm hiking in the mountains about 200 miles away from home. I hear them before I go to bed. My daughter is 14. I don't have a baby. She doesn't even live with me. I'm divorced. And the worst thing is, I don't know where that baby tooth is now. And the reason I'm writing this is because as I sit here in my home, I'm watching my security cameras. There's a white deer in my yard, and now it's screaming and yelling and cursing. But it's not a baby's voice anymore. It's mine. Oh, buddy. Why'd you take that tooth home? Should have left that thing sitting right there in those woods. But yeah, that's our short story for today. Again, that was written by Dry-Competition5290. I'm going to put his information in the show notes as well. And yeah, I actually talked with him for a little bit, just via messages. And really cool dude. And while looking at this today, actually, it seems like there is an update to this story, almost like it's done as a series. So make sure you go check his stuff out so you can see what happens next. Okay, so now we're going to get into our movie recap and review. And the movie we chose today was It Follows. My guest actually chose this movie, and she is sitting right here next to me. So let me introduce you to the one, the only, my wife, Ashleigh. Boom, 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 boom.
Hello, listeners. It's a pleasure to be here with my hunky hubs.
Oh, you're too nice. I feel like, well, I mean, you kind of have to do this because we are married. And
it's true. I'm a guinea pig.
It was in our vows, so.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had chosen, and by we, I mean you, chose It Follows. So, was there anything about this movie that you saw and you were like, oh, that's the one?
Well, Rotten Tomatoes had given it a good review, so that always carries some weight for me when I'm choosing something. And I just, I wanted to find something that wasn't like just your, typical slasher film. I'm more into like the thriller and the weird. And I was actually surprised that I had never seen it, heard of it. I just was like kind of deep diving into, okay, movies. What would I want to pick? And yeah, I actually really enjoyed it.
Me too. It was weird though. I looked up some stuff on the movie too, and for the reviews, it was like got really good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it was 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and then other places it had bad reviews. It was
on
kind of
Reddit. There were some threads where people were not as into it, and I was surprised.
It was kind of all over the place. But so, do you consider yourself a fan of horror?
I mean,
I would say you have a weird relationship with horror.
I would say that's true. I mean, if I'm feeling particularly anxious, then no, I'm going to want something that's like feel good, especially because if I am going to go into like the horror, I'm really more like psychological thriller, which is like equal parts intriguing and anxiety inducing. And so like depending on where I am on like my emotional thermometer will determine how willing I am to watch the horror.
No, that makes sense. And of course, I know that, but I just want our guests to know.
Yes, you know that. And even when I do watch it, it's usually like between like the little spaces of my fingers because I'm covering my eyes.
You covered a couple of times yesterday, but not so much.
I just get overwhelmed with anticipation.
Well, let's jump right into recapping the movie. So, It Follows was released in 2015, and it was written and directed by David Robert Mitchell with an estimated budget of $1 million. So, big budget on this movie. The starting opening scene, we see a young woman. She's running out of her house. She obviously looks scared. I've immediately noticed she is wearing some red high heels, which I'm like, that is not what I want to be running in.
No.
But we see her run into the road out of her house. She's backing up slowly. It's like she sees something weird. She then returns to her house, but makes like this huge loop around the road, enters her house, grabs her purse, hops into her car, and just peels out. I thought it was funny too. Her neighbor, sees her and is like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And this is where I'm like, maybe I'm a bad person, because if I saw that, I'd be like, let me mind my own damn business. like she's obviously on drugs. I'm just gonna walk away.
Yeah, maybe a little like, what is it called? A wellness check.
I was just like, I don't know, maybe I grew up weird where I'm just like, no, we don't ask weird people what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was interesting, like, she's in this all white dress, very almost kind of like symbolic of like a virgin, or like offering in a sense, but then these like red stiletto pumps on.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because that like kind of circular panning that the camera does, it's almost as if you're the whatever she's afraid of, and you're like watching her move around you. Agreed. It was kind of cool. And they go back to that circular panning a lot.
They do. Movie. And I bring up the cinematography in a little bit, but I did enjoy how they did that. So this woman, we don't know her name. She leaves. She ends up at a beach. There she calls I think it was her dad. Yeah, she calls her dad and is kind of like, Dad, I'm so sorry for everything I've put you through. Really sounds like a suicide, call. Like, oh, she's about to, finish it off. And then we see the next scene, which is her dead at the beach.
Like mangled.
And she's like mangled. Her leg is like broken the wrong way, and that red stiletto pump is like in her face.
Yes,
and I was
bones like sticking out, all stabby and weird.
And I was like, well, that definitely doesn't look like a suicide, so I thought that was interesting.
It seemed like she had backed herself up against the water, which there's also kind of like water sort of throughout
water
the
theme
movie.
In the movie,
But because I felt like maybe the thing couldn't be like behind her if it was the water, you know what I mean? So it was like she, didn't have to actually watch her back. But to me, it was more like a giving in or like a giving up, like just accepting her fate,
for sure,
more or less than like I'm gonna shoot myself in the head or something.
No, I'd agree with that. So after that scene, we actually meet our main character. It jumps to her in a pool. Her name is Jamie. She's often referred to as Jay. And her sister says that their best friends are inside, which comprises of Paul and Tara. Jamie enters. She says hi to everybody. It's kind of a weird, tense scene. I didn't understand. There was some tension between the characters. But Tara is sitting on the couch, and I thought this was so cool. She was reading like an ebook on her compact mirror. It was like a compact ebook mirror thing.
That was when I first noticed, like, wait, what time period is this supposed to be? Like, it's like they're watching what looks like 70s television and like a house that could have been like the Brady Bunch set, but then there's like Jamie's wearing like a puka shell necklace and like stuff that's way more like 80s 90s.
Yes, I think it definitely had that 70s 80s feel. And I think you could see that in the score of the movie, because the score was like super retro, fun, like OG horror.
Also like boop boop beep boop boop.
Yeah, it is. I like your score sound. And in the style of the movie too, because they're driving like older vehicles, like the station wagons and stuff. But yeah, so she's talking to her friends. She says she can't hang out. She's about to go on a date with a guy named Hugh. So we skip forward. She is at the movie theaters with Hugh, and they decide to play a game. It's called the trade game. Do you remember that? Where the rules are like...
Oh, yeah. They're like looking to see like if I could be somebody else.
Yeah.
And so like they pick a person, but then have the other person like try to guess who they picked.
Yes. Yeah. So that's exactly it. Hey, if you were to be anybody else in this crowd, who would you choose? They choose someone, and then it's, like our idea to guess who you chose. So Hugh chooses somebody, and it's actually a child, and he's like, oh, because he has his whole life ahead of him. And then when they're actually sitting in the theater, Jay chooses somebody, and Hugh's looking around, and he's like, oh, is it that woman in the yellow dress? And Jay turns, and she's like, what woman in the yellow dress? Are you messing with me? And he's like, look, she's right there. And Jay's looking, and we're like, yeah, there's definitely nobody there. And that's when Hugh kind of freaks out, and he's like, I don't feel good. Maybe we should go. And they skip out on the movie.
Yeah. It was definitely giving I See Dead People.
And my thing was, I'm like, if I'm being, at first, because we don't know everything yet, I'm like, if I'm being hunted, like, I was like, maybe we don't go on a date, Maybe chill somewhere else. I don't know. I feel like, but
But maybe he didn't know yet, like, because it seems like what we end up kind of finding out is it, like, can take a couple of days.
Yes.
So I'm like, maybe that was his, like, first...
maybe.
Like, spotting of someone, and then him realizing, like, oh, like, this is a thing.
Yeah. So, they continue their date. I think they go to, like, a restaurant. It seems like the date's going fine. They leave. We cut scene to the sisters walking down the neighborhood. Younger sister's like smoking a cigarette, and they're just talking about the date, being like, "Yeah, it went kind of weird. Blah blah blah. He seemed weird." So really, Hugh and Jay go on another date. I feel like that's the next, big thing. And after the date, they park their car in an abandoned lot.
Yeah, sketchy AF.
Sketchy, and they begin to, get jiggy with it. Yeah. And so they get jiggy with it. The car and the
get jiggy with it. Will Smith over here.
The car and that scene is actually the title cover, like the scene cover. So that's cool. They do decide to park in like the brightest area of the freaking parking lot. It's like under a spotlight.
Yeah, everything's dark around them. Other than like this kind of factory, like abandoned warehousey type building situation.
Yeah. So they do the thing. He gets out. He's rummaging in the trunk, and we just see our scene of Jay, who's sitting there, kind of talking about something. I don't know. She's saying something like super poetic and like romantic, and then we hear him, and I'm like, oh, it sounds like he's like grabbing some weird stuff. Like, I don't know, something
like,
weird's
pipes
going
are
on.
Clanging. Like, it sounds, And it was interesting. I don't know if you like noticed, but it was just like her arm.
Yes.
Like her pale arm with like these red nail polish, which was funny because the stilettos were like that bright red.
Oh yeah, I didn't even recognize that.
But yeah, it's just like her laying in the back seat with only her arm out of the car.
Yeah.
And it was just like, but she's talking and you're kind of watching her hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that, but now that you're saying it, I see that like color that keeps coming back up. But so Hugh comes around, starts kissing on her, and then ends up chloroforming her.
Yeah.
And this is where we're like, screw you, Hugh. You suck.
Yeah. I was like, well, this guy's an asshole. That was what I wrote in my notes.
Yeah. So he sucks.
Yeah.
So,
and we see her hand, that same arm, it's like a shot back to then it's now limp.
Yes.
Just kind of draped out of the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she wakes up, she's tied to a wheelchair, and she's inside of what looks like an abandoned, messed up parking garage.
I think it might be like that building that you kind of see in the background.
Yeah. And so she wakes up, and Hugh is like, oh, hey, you're awake. Okay, I have to tell you, I'm not going to hurt you, but I have to tell you what's going on. And so that's when he kind of explains what it is and what's going to happen to her. And he says, this thing, it's going to follow you. It's going to look like people you know, or maybe, whatever it can look like, so that way it can get close to you. He says it's slow, but it's not dumb. It changes its form, and it's passed on through sex. So he's like, you can go ahead and have sex with somebody else and pass it on.
Like, as soon as possible. He's like...
Yeah. Because he's like, if it gets you, then it's going to come back down the line and come to me. And I don't want it to come back. And he also says, don't let it touch you.
Yeah.
This is like, to me, reminiscent of the chain emails that you would get back in like MySpace days almost, you know what I mean?
Like if you don't send this to 10 people.
Yes. And then also I had written in my notes, this is the worst STD ever. Like,
actually.
Like, this sucks. Hugh,
like,
you're
well,
an
now
ass.
I have this weird sex curse shapeshifter, like...
Yeah. And then I'm also thinking, I'm like, so, okay, if they wear a condom, can it spread? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, does it follow, like, safe sex rules? Like,
I don't know.
That was
These
my
are valid
question.
questions.
Thank you. Well, after that scene, Hugh drops off Jay in front of her house, and her sister and her friends are sitting out in front of the house. He kind of like drops her off, just leaves her in the road.
No, she's like literally like fetal position.
Yeah,
just like
she's like only in her underwear, and so it's obvious the friends call the cops. The cops show up. And I thought it was super lame. The cops are like outside talking to Jay and asking what happened, and she's wrapped in a blanket, but I'm like, she's still outside around everyone. She's still naked. I'm like, come on, cops. We could do a little bit better than this, okay? This girl was just
maybe
assaulted.
Respect this woman's privacy.
Yeah, so they send Jay over to the hospital. The cops start doing their little detective work, which is crazy. They actually do some work. They go like back to where they had parked. They find her purse, and they find out that Hugh was not his real name. The house that he was staying at, he
had like rented.
Yeah, he rented under a false name. Kind of, I don't know, dipped out, and so we kind of just go through some scenes where it shows Jay dealing with the fact that this just happened to her, and she seems confused. And we come to this scene where she's in the bathroom, and this is after everything happened, and she kind of like goes to look down at her private regions and starts hyperventilating. And I didn't understand what was happening there. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, and I remember kind of thinking like, or expecting that we would see like, you know, there's some kind of like is it a marking that like she's now the like tag you're it kind of thing? Oh,
well, we did see a marking on her finger when she was talking to the cops.
X on her finger.
Yeah, she had an X tattooed on her finger at that point. So she was marked, but yeah, I don't know what she was seeing.
Well, and later we see that line from where a certain person gets struck, and it was like in that same vicinity, and so, but she wasn't at that point, she hadn't had any contact, so.
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
And she had seen, I guess we skipped past the part where she was in the parking garage. She did see a naked woman like walking towards the parking garage, and that's where we're like, oh, that must be it. But that's kind of all the only sighting that she had of it. And so at this point, she kind of doesn't really still understand. But I thought that scene in the bathroom was weird. And then somebody was like peeping through the window, and I literally wrote in my notes. I was like, what's wrong with her vajayjay? Like, what's going on?
Well, and there are those like creepy,
like the neighborhood
tomboys.
Yeah, there's like some kids
she's in
next
the pool
door
earlier in the movie, and they're like creeping, and she just kind of like casually is like, I see you over there.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm like, I don't know. That was a whole thing for me, because I'm like, it just has become this norm that she has no privacy, you know, and there's just, the whole world can just watch you in whatever state you're in. Like,
yeah, no, that was the neighbor boys are definitely like little creepers.
Yeah.
But so we cut scene to Jay going to class. She is sitting inside of her class and looking out the window, just kind of dazed at everything that's happening, and she sees it walking through the courtyard outside of the window. It's getting closer. She's kind of like, oh my god, like, is that it? You know, you can see it on her face. And so she gets up and leaves the class. She enters the hallway, and that's where she sees it again, but now as like this old woman in a like hospital gown.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, why would it choose that form? I'm like, that's not gonna get it closer to her. I mean, the first form looked like a student just kind of walking through the courtyard, and so I think that could definitely get closer. No, was it a woman?
I thought it was the woman the whole time.
Oh, it was.
I think it's a different time.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm like, is this like grandma from the, you know, nursing home? Like, is this something? Because it says, you know, or like Hugh had said that it can take the shape of people you know, people you're close to. It can sound like them, and so that's what I was like, who is this old lady to Jay? You know?
Yeah. Well, she sees this old lady in the hallway. Nobody else sees the old lady. She's walking closer, and so Jay decides to just ditch school. She gets into her. Does she get into a car and leave? I don't exactly remember how she left, but I do remember hearing the fun like vintage score here. So I do think she was driving, and it was giving that 70s 80s vibe, and a lot of that cinematography during the drives, like down the roadways and stuff.
There was a really cool shot, because she was in a car, because I'm looking at my notes, where it was like, it goes from like all the darkness in the car, but just the light from the rear view mirror and her like checking behind her. And then that same like little rectangle of light becomes like she's looking at, and it's like the light at the end of the tunnel that she's moving towards.
Okay.
Still with like darkness all around. It was just like a cool transition from like rear view to like what's in front of you, but like, I don't know.
No, I totally agree. I really like the cinematography. So yeah, Jay leaves school and she drives over to her sister's job where her sister and Paul work, which, by the way, I do not know the name of the sister. I had never got the name of the sister.
I legit thought that the friend's name was Yara this whole time until you called her Tara earlier. And I was
no, isn't it Yara?
I thought you called her Tara earlier.
Oh, did I? Oops.
And then I was like, oh, well, I had that girl's name
No.
wrong.
Her name is Yara, but that was my bad. But yeah, she drives to her sister's job. They look like they work at a little fast food kind of place. And Paul also works there. And she explains to them what's happening, what Hugh had said, kind of tells them about it. And it's obvious that the sister is like, okay, listen, that's a bunch of BS. Like, But Paul, who obviously has a crush on Jay, decides or asks if he can stay the night so that way he can help protect her. And so they end up having a sleepover. I believe all the girls are upstairs in one room or whatnot. Paul is downstairs watching some TV. He says, I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to make sure nothing happens. Nothing comes for you, blah, blah, blah. And then Jay can't sleep. So she comes down to hang out with Paul. She's sitting with him. And that's where we find out they do have a little bit of a history. Like they had their first kiss together.
She's
and then
like kind of mildly inching her toes closer to him on the couch.
But we also find out Paul then kissed her sister. So, kind of like, okay, Paul. But, he's like, they're like teenagers. So,
kind of that like classic, like, oh, he's the boy in the neighborhood. And, yeah.
So they're sitting there talking and all of a sudden we hear some glass break. And Paul goes to check it out. It happens in the kitchen. He doesn't see anything, but he's like, yeah, somebody tried to break into your house. I'm going to go upstairs and tell your sister. He takes the longest damn time to go tell her sister. I'm like, Jay is just sitting down there. She's scared. Like, somebody just tried to break into the house. Maybe, like, take her with you or something, Paul. I don't know.
Something.
But she gets up and goes to check out the kitchen. And that's where
why?
But why, right? I don't know. Would you go check it out?
I feel like when I watch these things, I'm like, oh, I would not be that person. But then I guess, you're in real life. Who knows? Thankfully, I haven't. I guess I would investigate at a certain point, but not by myself.
Not by myself. No, I would not investigate by myself. But she goes to investigate, and that's where we see it. Like, up close and personal. At this point, it's a woman. She's got, like, one boobie out. She's, like, peeing all over the floor, and Jay just starts screaming. She runs upstairs, locks the door. I believe it's just her in the room, or her and her sister. All three girls end up in the room.
Yeah, because Paul's not in the room.
Yeah, because Paul goes to look because she's like, oh, hey, someone's down there. Someone's in the kitchen. So Paul goes to look. It's the three girls in the room. Somebody starts knocking on the door. We hear that it's Paul, and we're like, oh, okay, it's just Paul. So they open up the door for Paul, and behind Paul comes the largest man I've ever seen.
I know. I was like, is this strung out Frankenstein?
Yeah, like
he looked wild.
Yeah, he comes running up, like not running,
no,
but walking
like,
quickly.
But he has to duck, like
yes, he ducks
into
in through the
room,
door. Like this dude is like
door frame.
8 feet tall.
Yeah,
and at the sight of that, Jay just hops out
the window.
Hops out the window. Like I think there might have been some sort of porch up there or something, like patio type
like
thing,
like a lower roof. But yeah, she's just hurling her body out.
And she
house
which,
at that point.
Which I'm like, okay, see, I understand that. I would do the same thing. You know, I'm not gonna go investigate. I'm hurling myself out the window. But so she hurls herself out the window, and she takes a bike and bikes over to the park where she sits and is just kind of sitting, waiting for who knows what. I mean, at that point, what do?
Yeah.
You know. And
it was super eerie though, and of course, like you've got this, swing creaking, and leaves rustling,
and again, I feel like that's hitting on that like OG like 70s, 80s, like it just was really giving that like retro horror style. So I thought that was super cool. But we see her friends, they find her, they come up to her, they're talking, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. They're like nobody was there, and then we see Greg. And I think this is the first time I'm talking about Greg, so let me tell you a little bit about Greg. Greg is the neighbor. He also seems to be this sort of like player. He's in a high school, obviously. I think he goes to high school with them all. And he's just like kind of a ladies man, player type dude. Well, Greg ends up walking up, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. I think Jay explained to him that like something's following her, and he offers to drive to find Hugh, because at this point Jay's like, I want to know more about what's going on. We've got to figure this out. So he offers to drive and try to find Hugh. They drive kind of throughout the night and end up at the house that used to be Hugh's, but he's no longer there. why are these high school kids? They're just able to drive and be out all night. Like,
literally,
all
I
of
wrote,
them?
I'm like, where are the adults?
Yeah, like,
But I think that they are college.
Are
age.
they?
Yeah, because she mentions like doing something in high school, like past tense, and I
okay.
had seen that she's supposed to be like 19.
Okay.
Like the actress was actually 21 when she filmed it, but yeah, her character is 19.
Okay.
So yeah, I think she and Greg have like some college classes together because you do see them together there.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'm
still like, I mean, you don't see any adults.
You see the mom a little bit, but like never her like full
Yeah.
face. Like she's never really in a lot of scenes.
Yeah.
But anyway, they end up at Hugh's house. Hugh's house is all like weird. The windows are covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's abandoned. The windows are covered with newspaper. He's got like cans up against the windows so that way if it breaks,
alarms.
yeah, it'll make some noise. And so the kids are just kind of walking around trying to look through stuff, trying to find things. This is the first time where we see Greg being like kind of creepy because Yara's standing and looking for something and he's like checking out her legs, and
yeah,
I was like, oh, okay, Greg, I don't know how I feel about you.
Creeper gone creep.
So Paul and Jay, they go upstairs, they find Hugh's room, and Paul finds some porno magazines, which he sits down and starts going through and like looking at all the pictures. I'm like, that's kind of weird, Paul.
And that was after he and Jay had already been talking about how they did end up kissing, which was when they were looking at porno magazines together. And I'm like, okay.
I'm like, yeah, Paul, this probably isn't the situation. But luckily, he did look through it because they found a picture of Hugh and he's wearing his high school like jacket. It's got the high school name on it. They're like, oh, hey, we can drive to this high school and try to find him. So that's what the kids do. They go over to the high school, and this is where we get a really cool camera scene. The camera is set up in the middle of a hallway. The kids are to the right talking to an administrator, kind of looking through the yearbooks, trying to find, you know, who Hugh really is. And so that camera starts doing that spinning panning, and we see kind of just a normal high school scene happening, and then far across the courtyard we see it looks like a student, but definitely just walking like directly to where they are. It pans through a couple of times. Every time it's like getting closer and closer. And finally they leave the office. They found what they're looking for, and they found that Hugh's real name is Jeff Redman, I think it was.
Oh, I didn't even write it down, but yeah.
Yes, Jeff Redman. So the kids hop back in the car. They're talking about it, talking about finding Jeff now, and again in the distance we see it in this as the same character slowly walking up to the car. But I will say it really blended in so well as a student that like
I can't blame them, and you had to rewind it for me because I didn't even pick up on it at first.
Yeah, I was like, did you see that? And you're like, what? It was like she was right there. So the group goes and they find Jeff at his mom's house.
That you do pick up though in that car ride on a lot of jealousy from Paul.
Yes, yeah. Paul and
I think
Greg
that's like he is definitely.
Greg's not jealous.
No,
Greg's just like,
not
oh,
at
I'm
all.
gonna hit on whoever is here. But Paul is like, I don't like
Paul
this.
wants to volunteer as tribute. Paul is thirsty.
Yeah. Paul's like, I'll do it.
Yeah, and he is not liking any kind of interaction. Like, there's like at one point, Greg kind of offers like a reassuring like pat on Jay's back, and you see Paul watching from the back seat, and he is like,
but Paul keeps it cool. Paul keeps it cute. He's not like being a jerk about anything.
No,
you know what
he's
I mean?
not being a jerk, but I do start to get some like almost like obsessive like you. Like the show You type vibes from him towards the end.
I didn't get that vibe, but I could see it. But I just think I got more of just like boy crush, like ooh, I've liked this girl forever,
pining for her.
Yeah. But I could see what you're talking about. So the group gets over to Jeff's mom's house and they talk to Jeff, and really we don't get any new information. I'm like, I feel like this scene was not really necessary. He just repeats the same thing, but this time to everybody. And that, I don't know, that's it. And everybody's like, oh, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Like nobody believes him except for our main character, because she is the one seeing everything. After leaving after leaving Jeff's house, they kind of want to figure out where to go. And Greg offers up like a vacation
lake
home.
house.
Yeah, like a lake house vacation home where his dad used to take him to go hunting and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, it's way out there. We'll have some time to figure stuff out. So they drive out there and they decide to stay. Greg pulls out a gun. They practice shooting just in case anything were to come. They're just kind of kids hanging out at the lake house at this point, and they end up going to, it's almost like the beach of a lake, maybe, or maybe it is a beach.
Yeah, which looks similar to
the
opening scene.
scenes.
I'm like, oh, is this where it all started? Like,
yeah. So they go over there, and this is where we're about to get the coolest scene of the movie. I think it's the coolest scene of the movie. So they're all sitting on the beach, talking, blah, 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 whatever. We see Yara is out in the water. She's trying to tell everyone to come in. The camera pans back to Jay and her friends, and all of a sudden, Jay's hair starts
to stand up on its own, seemingly.
It's lifting. And then her friends see it. They're like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, it's obvious Jay is fighting against something that is trying to pull on her. Luckily, it is only grabbing her hair, and it has not touched her, but she's definitely pulling. Everybody starts screaming. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Paul takes his chair and goes to hit behind Jay, and the chair breaks. It just falls apart.
Over top, essentially it.
Yeah, essentially over it, but we can't see it. We are only seeing what's happening around it. And so the chair breaks, and then Paul goes flying.
He gets yeeted.
He gets yeeted out of the scene.
Out of the camera.
Like,
the show.
He is hit and yeeted away. So they end up being able to get away from it. They go to hide in
a little shed, like garage.
Yeah,
type
a little
thing,
beach shed of some sort. They all get in there. They lock the door. Everyone's in there except for Greg. And that's when they start hearing some banging. They're like, obviously not going to open the freaking door. But it's able to bust out some of the boards.
Yeah, there's like a small hole now at the bottom.
There's a small hole towards the bottom of the door, and Greg pops up. He pops up in the hole. Little jump scare, like, oh, it's just Greg. And he's like, what are you guys doing? There's nobody out here, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, something's going on. So Greg walks away from the hole. I don't know what he's doing. And what I think... our main character goes to walk up because she's worried.
She's crawling towards that hole, and I'm like, I literally wrote, why are you crawling towards that door, B-word? Because, like, what is your problem? Like, it's out there.
She was worried that something happened to Greg.
She was calling for him.
Yeah,
but still, I'm like, send somebody else to look out the hole.
I agree. Well, out of the hole, while she's almost face to face with it, comes it starts going through the hole. It looks like her neighbor at this point.
Yeah, like one of those creepy boys
that was watching her
with like dark, like gaunt eyes.
Yes.
And just looks totally like undead kind of thing.
Yes. So she is able to get out of this shed. She jumps into Greg's car, just kind of steals it. He's like, what the fuck? That's my car. And
she's like, peace.
And she just drives out on him. Almost gets into a car accident, ends up in a field, and kind of hits her head, gets knocked out. That ends that whole scene.
Yeah.
We jump to the next scene.
Cue to the hospital.
Yep. Cue to the hospital. So we wake up in the next scene. She's just waking up in the hospital. All her friends are there. Everyone's there. They're all sleeping. And I don't know what happens. What happened?
There was a lot of circular panning in the hospital as well.
Oh, and in the hospital, that's where, she's getting better. She's waking up, whatever. And then we see her and Greg having sex. Like, they decided to have sex. And I think this is really gross because, one, Greg doesn't believe her. So it almost feels
like... It's just an opportunity.
Yeah, it's just an opportunity for him to have sex with her, and it feels so yucky. I'm like, dude, it almost feels like because he doesn't believe her, he's just taking advantage of someone that, in his mind probably has, like, some sort of mental disorder at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, she's literally laying there in a hospital bed, like, cast on her arms, bandage on her head.
Yeah.
Like, not fully incapacitated. Like, she's conscious, she's aware, but, like... There isn't, like, it feels very icky.
Yeah.
Like, she is consenting, but, like, with the least amount of consent possible. Like, this is the last thing she wants to be doing.
But it's probably, well, good for her, I guess, for, like, sending it onward, but still, I don't know. It just felt weird. So, gross. After they have sex in the hospital, we kind of continue throughout the week. She goes back home. Greg's in school. Things are...
Did you notice that he immediately goes and starts talking to other girls, though?
Yes.
Like, right after, so I'm like, are we supposed to think that he passed it on to them? Or
No, I just think...
like, that was nothing to him and he's already, like, on to the next?
Yeah, I think we're just seeing some of Greg's character there, you know what I mean? So, yeah, he's going to school, everything feels normal, until... Well, and then Jay asks him, like, hey, have you seen anything? Because it's been 3-4 days, and he's like, no, nothing. Maybe it ended with me, blah, 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 you know? One night, Jay is in her bedroom. She's looking out the window, and that's where, at this point, she sees it. And it is...
looks like Greg.
Does it look like Greg?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been 3-4 days. It looks like Greg, and it's walking to Greg's house. And it breaks in, so she sees that. She tries to call Greg. He doesn't answer. She runs over there and just also jumps into the house. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, again, you're by yourself. Like, I would never. But she goes upstairs, and we see it banging on Greg's door, and now it looks like his mom.
Yeah.
And it does this super creepy thing where it turns towards Jay and, like, looks at her. It stops banging, and it looks at her, and then turns back to the door and keeps banging because it's like, ooh, I'm not here for you yet. You know what I mean? And so she's screaming, Greg, don't open the door. Greg, no. And Greg opens the door, and, you know, it gets him. And she actually sees it. It looks super weird. It's a weird scene.
Yeah.
It's an uncomfortable scene.
It was like electric sex.
Yeah.
Weird. I'm like, is this how it like steals your soul?
And
like,
again with
like...
the peeing too. I don't know what's up with peeing in this movie, but it's like sitting on top of Greg, like peeing on him. I'm like, this is, and it looks like his mom. So that makes it so weird.
No, I feel like there's just like a lot of things that can, like, I mean, obviously, like, you know, are kind of maybe fetishy or, you know, just like perceived as like extra sinful or whatever. And it's weird.
It was an uncomfortable scene, but it gets Greg. Jay's there. She's like, oh no. And then it turns and it starts walking towards her because she's the next one in the line. So she hops out, gets into the car, and peels off. She parks her car in some sort of forest. It's right next to a body of water. Again, we're seeing a body of water. But she sits on top of the hood of the car and falls asleep, which I'm like, girl, that's crazy. What are you doing? Get in the car. You can lock the door. Can it get in through the window? I don't know, maybe. But I'm like, you slept on the hood of the car? That's crazy.
That was weird.
And then how, like, my back could never. Like, I would wake up in the morning and be disabled. Like, I would see it walking to me, and I'd be like, oh, well, it's going to happen now. Like, I can't move.
I'm completely stuck.
Yeah. So she wakes up in the morning, again, on the hood of the car. It's not there, so that's cool. She goes over to the ocean, sees that there's a boat out there. And decides to take off her clothes and start walking into the water like as if she was headed towards the boat. Her casket's all wet, and I'm like, ooh, you know that felt so yucky. But I think she had sex with those guys on the boat. Or with one of them.
That's what I literally put in my notes. Like, did she swim out to the boat? Did she have sex with the guy? Like, is that what she's trying to do here? Yeah. Yeah,
so I think that she had sex with one of the people on the boat because also afterwards... It takes it a while to get back to her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we see some time go by where it's like it is not following her at this point. So I do think that's what happens. After all this kind of goes on, we get a cut scene back to the house. The girls are sleeping again in the sister's room. Paul comes to the door. Jay lets Paul in, and they kind of start talking. Paul tells Jay all about how he's jealous. He's like, you know, I was willing to do it. Why'd you do it with Greg? Blah, blah, blah. And I think the reason she did it with Greg is because she didn't care about Greg. You know what I mean? I think she actually does care about Paul. And so she didn't want to kind of provide this thing to him.
Yeah.
But he tries to kiss her and he gets rejected again. You know, she's like, no, I'm not doing that. And it's Paul's idea. He's like, do you trust me? I feel like we can do something about this. Do you remember the first place we kissed? And she says that she does. And we find out the first place they kissed was at kind of like a local pool, like in a local indoor pool. And so we don't exactly know what they're planning, but they kind of head that way. They break into the pool, and that's where we see them now setting up a bunch of electronics like around the edge of the pool. So like blow dryer, toaster, iron,
microwave,
like a whole bunch of
you
stuff.
can plug it in. They've got it somehow.
And so they have everything plugged in. They've got all these extension cords, and I'm like sitting there thinking, like, as a firefighter, I'm like, oh, that's such a fire hazard. Those extension cords.
I wouldn't even want to have those things near the pool.
Yeah, like those extension cords are probably not rated for all that stuff. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, and before they when they're heading to the pool, you do see that it has like caught up with her, and it's on the roof, like crazy, maybe it's that tall guy again, I'm not sure, but like totally naked.
You're right.
And like huge looking.
Yeah. When they're leaving the house to go to the pool, it's on top of the roof. And I wondered, because it usually takes the quickest route to the people. It had no reason to be on the roof. But you remember how Hugh/Jeff was like, we can still see it. It still messes with us. I wonder if it hadn't yet killed like one of the people on the boat that she had sex with, and so maybe it was just there kind of taunting her,
like, keeping up with his GPS coordinates.
I don't know.
So what does this thing do? Like, put a tracker on its host person? Like,
it seems, and also like why was it naked?
Why?
It was like full naked. I like full bush.
Yeah, but again, I feel like that almost goes back to like those like forbidden things, like or the scandalous things. Like, there's a lot of interesting play with like sexuality and stuff, and just
just like it definitely, I feel like this movie uses sex as a really like good way to make you feel uncomfortable, you know what I mean? But anyway, we're back at the pool. It's obvious at this point they're gonna try to lure it into the pool, and so Jay gets in the pool again, a full cast submerged, and every time I see that I'm like, ugh, gross. But she sits there, and they're waiting for it to come, and time is passing. It seems like she's in there forever. I'm thinking, damn, like maybe you should have waited until it like walked in, because like you're gonna get pruny. You're gonna be cold.
Everybody's just like lounging by electronics poolside.
Yeah, and then she's in the pool. All these electronics. I'm like, what if somebody accidentally knocks one in? Like
for real.
Like you gonna get fried. But anyway. It finally walks into the area, but we are seeing from the perspective of her friends who don't see it. So Jay starts freaking out, and she's pointing, and she's like, it's in here. And they're like, what's it doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I do wish she was like keeping better tabs on what was happening. Like, her friends kept having to ask, like, where is it? What is it? And let me tell you, if I was in that pool, I'd be saying like every step that it's taking, every move that it's making, whatever. Well, it just ends up standing there, she says. It's staring at her. It's not getting in the pool. And we remember that Hugh/Jeff, I don't know what to call him at this point. Well, he was like, it's slow, but it's not dumb. It's not stupid. So it starts walking around the edge of the pool, and now we see all these electronics getting picked up, and they're starting to get chucked right at Jay. And they're like hitting her in the face and stuff. Luckily, it doesn't work as far as like electrical component, like nobody gets fried in the pool.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe these outlets like didn't have electricity.
They were off,
like they might be off. Like it looked like
grounded.
So I don't know, but it didn't end up working. Thank God, because she would have died. Yeah. But so it starts chucking stuff at her. It's a really intense scene. We've got Paul, who's like, where is it? Where is it? Paul's got a gun. Paul's ready to shoot, and what Jay starts pointing, she's like, it's right there. Yeah. So Paul goes to shoot it, ends up shooting Yara.
Yeah, shooting towards actual people.
Yeah. Shooting towards his friends. He shoots Yara just in the leg, just a flesh wound.
Grazes the calf.
I don't know. It looked like it got her pretty good, but
she's like still scrolling on her like Polly Pocket ebook.
But so it gets her. He ends up shooting it in the head, but it's cool because we can't see it, but we see like all this splatter kind of happen in the background, but that doesn't affect it. They end up putting a blanket on top of it, and that's kind of how they're able to... Yeah, the sister kind of
throws this sheet thing, and that was very cool. It reminded me of, what's that one movie? Invisible Man or whatever.
Yeah. I could totally see that. So yeah, she throws a sheet on top of it, and now they can kind of see the form of it. And what, do they shoot it again, and it ends up in the pool that time? And it falls into the pool?
Yeah, they shoot it, it falls into the pool. And then
Yeah,
they keep but she's in the pool.
Yeah, so she's in the pool. It falls into the pool, and it ends up grabbing her ankle and pulling Jay down into the water.
Yes.
At this point, she's struggling super hard. She's on the verge of drowning. And Paul, who doesn't really know what to do, but is like, well, I still got this gun.
Yeah.
He starts shooting in the pool, obviously afraid that he's going to hit Jay. But luckily...
Shooting, like, behind where her foot is, just kind of somewhat aimlessly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he ends up shooting it, and it lets go of Jay. Jay hops out of the pool. She's, freaking out, drying off, whatever it may be. And they're like, hey, we need to know, is it still in there? Do you still see it? Mm-hmm. And instead of standing up and looking in the pool, she is on the ground, like belly down, crawling towards the pool.
Let me put my head as close to this freaking water as possible.
And I'm like, girl, stand up. Like, what are you doing? But she goes over there, and we just see a whole bunch of, like, blood kind of filling up the pool. Yeah. And that's where that scene ends.
It was very trippy looking blood, though.
Yes.
Like, super fake, like, almost campy and, like, swirly, and, yeah.
So after that, I assume they all leave because they're not there anymore, and I know.
Reasonable assumption.
Thank you. And next we see Paul and Jay. They decide to have sex. And I will say, in every sex scene, they seem like they're really, like, enjoying themselves, and I don't think I would be, I'd be like, oh, I'm about to see this freaking thing forever, you know what I mean? Like, like, I don't know how even able, get it up, Like,
I mean, they're like horny youths.
Yeah, that's true. So they end up having sex, and at this point, Jay and Paul become a unit. For our last scene of the movie, we see Paul and Jay. They're walking together hand in hand down the road, and as the camera kind of pans to so we can see behind them as they're walking, we see it walking behind them and getting closer. And that's where the movie ends.
Yeah.
And for the first time, we see the title card at the end of the movie, which is different than usual.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the movie.
It was wild. It was definitely... And, like, right before... Or right after Paul and Jay have sex, he goes and you see him, like, driving past prostitutes. But I'm like, so does he actually... I mean, I guess we're meant to assume that. But then I'm like, well, if it's now following them again, does that mean the prostitute just immediately got, like, soul sucked?
I mean, maybe. Because there's a lot of times in the movie where it's like, oh, are we supposed to assume that that they've now spread it to the next person? Because there's, like, times where it takes, like, a really long time for it to suddenly show back up, like how it was with Greg, Like, yeah, maybe Greg did, because we know that he's, like, talks to all these girls and blah, 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 so maybe he did have sex with someone, and that's why it took so long for it to come back, or, when Jay went out to the boat and, possibly had sex with those guys, and it took a while for it to come back to her, So, that could have definitely been the thing with Paul as well. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really, like, good movie. Like, it was fun. It wasn't, like, groundbreaking, something to write home about, but I thought it was really, really good and just, like, a really fun watch. And I didn't expect it, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a jump scare here or this, that, but I liked that so often we saw it, you know what I mean? And instead of it being, like, this buildup of, oh no, what's it gonna be? It was more of a buildup of, like, oh, it's like right
where
there.
Is it?
Yeah, like,
where's Waldo?
yeah. So I thought that was really fun.
Mm-hmm. In the movie Signs, how there's, like, that iconic, like, alien walking past, like, it was that same kind of just, like, eeriness of, like,
oh, they're putting it right in your face.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I have children right now even talking about it because it just, like, I don't know. It was definitely creepy.
Yeah. So if you had to rate it 5 stars, what are you rating it?
4.6.
Oh, okay, so that's, like, hot, like, almost 5 stars.
I mean, I thought it was really good. I think some of the acting wasn't always the best. But I really enjoyed it. And I thought that it was, like, it kept you kind of guessing enough, but also gave you a lot. And, definitely for me, had me, like, trying to figure it out and solve it. And, the anticipation was was really good, I thought, and yeah, like, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. What would you give it?
I'd give it like probably like 3.5. 3.5, 4 stars. Just because, like I said, it wasn't like groundbreaking. It's not like a movie that I'm gonna be like, because you know me, because you're married to me. Sometimes I watch a movie and it's like I think about that movie for like 3 weeks and I'm just like, wow,
yeah.
It's not like that for me, but it was just really fun and I felt like it was done really well. For what it was. Like I said, they really brought back that like retro feel, but they didn't do it in a way that felt like campy and stupid. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like it didn't come across as like, oh, they were trying too hard to be like, oh, this is Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So yeah, I would give it a 3.5, like maybe leaning towards 4 stars, just because it was really good. But yeah, the acting, some parts, like you said,
kind of
not
mid.
as good. A little mid on some parts. We only got two. We got 2 kills in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Because of this girl from the opening scene and then Greg.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought they were decent kills. Like, we didn't see the opening scene kill, but we saw the aftermath, and that was really good. Greg's kill, a little bit less, good.
Still very weird.
Very weird, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was like we were at some kind of rave.
Yeah.
Like, there's like strobe lightning happening.
Did you have a favorite character?
No.
Okay, all right. So maybe
Did you?
I did. Maybe an unpopular opinion. My favorite character, Yara.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought Yara was cool. Okay, she was a background character. Let's be honest. She was not as important as any other character in the movie. But your girl was always down. Okay, she didn't ask no questions. All right, she was always having fun. She was reading on her little compact mirror, which was freaking cool. And like, even when they were in the crazy situations, like, when they were at the beach before it like actually attacked everybody, like she's out in the water being like, "Come on, y'all, get in!" Like, she just seemed she's fun. She's loyal. She had your back. She got shot in the leg and she wasn't even mad about it.
She was not complaining.
She was not complaining.
Very chill character.
Yes,
I could see that. Almost like the way you were first describing her, it was giving me like Velma from Scooby-Doo vibes.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
she never lost her glasses though.
She didn't lose her glasses.
Yeah.
But no, I just overall, like, maybe it was me just kind of trying to read into meaning, but it definitely, I guess, got me thinking just in, again, like, as a woman or, just as a person who is sexually active, like, there is a lot of vulnerability there and risk to an extent, and like, opening yourself up to someone, literally, figuratively, there can be fear associated with that. And so this was, like you said, like the worst STD ever. Like, you just never really know what you're going to get. And then also, like, you can't ever really fully escape your past. Like, you can move on, you can grow, you can forgive, forget. But, like, your past will catch up with you, ultimately. And that was kind of a takeaway. Yeah, no, that's a really, I enjoy that way of looking at it. That's really cool, because I was definitely like, oh, this is just fun, cool, and you're like over here like, yeah, I had this deep meaning behind everything. I'm like, well, maybe I need to look at, Well, even like at first, I mean, yes, obviously, like the cops are called when she's left like half naked in the road, but like there's a lot of people that are kind of minimizing what she's saying and not believing her, and unfortunately that happens a lot. Like when people are making accusations or trying to explain like their experience, and maybe some people kind of listen or, or compassionate, whatever, but like a lot of times people are judged or not believed, or, their feelings are kind of invalidated there. Yeah, for sure. Well, I had a really good time watching the movie with you. I know that afterwards we had to watch something light because you were a little scared. But I mean, I was just in my head, and we had partaken in certain particulars prior to. So maybe having a little anxiety. Maybe a tinge. Okay. But any last anything you want to add? Yeah, actually. So I looked it up out of curiosity, and apparently, even though this was 2015, it just so happens that they did just start filming a follow-up.
I heard it follows two. I think I saw
It's
that.
called They Follow.
Oh, They Follow. Ooh,
Yeah.
2 of them now.
And so the anticipated release is late 2025, early 2026, and Micah Monroe that plays Jay is going to be in this one as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
So
I feel like we need to, go see that in theaters.
Oh, okay.
And then we can...
Our phone's going to be lit up as we're taking our notes. People are going to be like,
Were those
turn that
people?
off. Yeah. Maybe we'll sit in the back of the theater.
Maybe we'll sit in the back.
But yeah, no, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
And everybody else that's listening now can plan to watch it and give us their thoughts too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be your first distinguished guest.
First distinguished guest. You heard it here, folks. All right. Well, it's weird because I'm like, well, I'm married to you, so I'll see you later, but I'm going to see you right now.
Yeah, we're about to go have some coffee.
All right. Well, we'll say goodbye to the guests.
Bye, guests. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me. Please support my husband. He's awesome, and I love him, so you need to love him too.
Woo! It was so fun recording with Ashleigh today. I hope you guys liked, having a guest on. Go ahead and comment. Let us know what you thought about this, what you thought about the movie, all those things like that. And now we say what our next week's movie is going to be. And for next week, I have chosen, a drum roll please, The Rule of Jenny Penn. I believe it was one of my friends that just told me about this movie, and this movie looks weird. Go ahead and watch the trailer for it. This is going to be a really weird one, and it seems like it's going to be a really fun one to recap. Let me give you guys the storyline real quick. Confined to a secluded rest home and trapped within his stroke-ridden body, a former judge must stop an elderly psychopath who employs a child's puppet to abuse the home's residents with deadly consequences. So yeah, that's it's going to be a good one. So make sure you watch that. And we are now at the end of the episode. Thank you guys again for listening. Make sure you like, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram. That's Blood Ink Podcast. And if you want to send in any of your own short stories, you can do that to our email, bloodinkpodcast@gmail.com. Last thing, don't forget to check out my new short story available on Kindle Unlimited or Amazon Prime. That's called Sleep Over from Hell. It was really great hanging out with you guys, and I can't wait to do this again next episode. All right, bye-bye.